Hey, what is up, guys? Blunt Guts here. This is a Watch Over Realms video. Thank you so much for tuning into my channel. I really appreciate it. I am here to talk about Twyla. Banner hero this weekend. She is interesting, to say the least. Really good hero. I'm going to say that up front. Really good hero. I do think that she is worth summoning for. I'm going to talk you through her talents, her skills. I'm going to talk through her awakenings. We're going to do that as quickly as I possibly can. Try not to be overly verbose. The interest of your time. I will have chapters set up in here so you can skip around. After I do the skill breakdown, I am going to talk about her damage. I've done some testing in Guild Boss 1, Guild Boss 2. I'm going to compare her to other Nightmare fighters. We're going to see if she has a spot. Is she better than Kagiri and Arrogance and Lust? All of these MVPs that are already in the Nightmare faction. Does she have a spot there? Is she good enough to justify a spot on your roster? Let's get into it. So guys, before I talk about Twyla, I gotta say, one, I think she's worth getting. Two, if you are going to be buying summons in order to get her, definitely buy your W Gold on Smile 1. Smile 1 is the official third-party payment platform for Watcher of Realms. Every time you buy on Smile 1, you're going to get at least a 10% discount on your W Gold purchase. Don't spend any more than you have to on this game, would be my advice, much to the chagrin of Moonton, I'm sure. But save money where you can. If you are going to spend wisely, in my opinion. On top of that, for a limited time, there's a single top-up rebate event going from October 31st all the way to November 10th. You can use my exclusive link in the description of this video. I don't get a kickback or anything like that, but it does help me. It does get me more of these promotions. So I would certainly appreciate it if you did use my link. If you are going to be purchasing, you can check out the rewards. They are to the right of me on the screen right now. Depending on how much you buy, you're going to get some free rewards along with the W Gold as well. Right, so let's talk about these talents here. Well, just one talent. He's only got one talent. Let's be honest. Each basic attack launched has a 25% chance to trigger Deranged Blade. Deranged Blade deals 20% damage 12 times consecutively and inflicts bleed for 5 seconds. A lot of her kit kind of revolves around this skill. So a couple things to note. It is in total 240% damage. It is going to hit 12 times, though. That is important. Obviously, there's a number of places in the game, I'm thinking Styx Codex in particular, where hitting quickly a large number of times is very important, is very helpful. So she is going to be useful there. Finally, the trigger chance of Deranged Blade is increased by 5% each time the ultimate is cast, up to 15%. So 3 ultimate casts, you're going to max that out. You're going to have a 40% chance to do a 240% damage attack that hits 12 times. It's a 240% damage total, but it's going to hit 12 times in order to do it. So that is pretty solid, especially when you look at some of her stats. She does a lot of damage. Really cool hero. Not the best part of her kit, but probably It's the thing that her kit revolves around. Let's just put it that way. So, basic attack. This is where the bad news starts. 120% damage to one enemy. 1 tile range. What the fuck? I'm so tired of this. I know she's a boss killer. I know that's her purpose. But would it kill you to give her 2 tiles? Let her be used somewhere else. We have enough Nightmare fighters that have 1 tile range, that are boss killers. We don't need more of them. I swear to God, every other legendary that's released feels like it is a Nightmare fighter at this point. Don't want any more. Why couldn't she be an Infernal or a Cultist or, a Piercer? I mean, she's got a bond skill with Hex, and yet she is a Nightmare fighter. I don't get it. I do not get it. Anyways, we're moving on. I'm not going to harp on it any more than I have to. The ultimate, Slice and Dice. It is a 600 when fully skilled up. Rage cost ultimate, 400 initial rage. It's got a 15-second duration base, 20-second duration when it is fully skilled up. When activated, increases damage by 30% and reduces attack interval by 20%. Granting Deranged Blade an extra 6 instances of damage, so it's going to go to 18, meaning you're going to have 360% damage when you do hit Deranged Blade. This is going to last for 15 seconds, again, up to 20 when you are fully skilled up. Deals 200% damage 2 times to one enemy immediately, so you're going to get an immediate 400% damage by doing that. Now, the damage increase is going to go up another 20%. So you're going to get 50% damage when fully skilled up. Like I said, you're going to get 100 costs off of it, and you are going to get an extra 5 seconds on it. Very solid ultimate, especially because a lot of her kit does revolve around casting this, like building up over time the ability to either ignore defense, which we're going to talk about in a second, or increase the chance to trigger the ranged blade. This is something that is really going to help you out. Being able to cast it over and over again, that low rage cost kind of enables you to get to the good stuff quicker. So that is that. We like that. Solid ultimate. Do like the ultimate. Symphony of Ruin. This is her passive. After not dealing damage for 2 seconds, increases rage regen auto by 10. This effect is removed upon dealing damage. Now, I don't really get this. This is going to go up to, 20? You can get 20 rage regen per second when you aren't dealing any damage. I guess that's nice. I don't know. You know, she's got such a low rage cost ultimate. I don't know that it's really going to make that big a deal. I'm sure there's, like, situationally, there could be a spot where this becomes really important, but it's really only going to come into play in very unique circumstances, and I just don't know that it really matters all that much. I don't think you're going to be using her in GBG, so that is one spot where this kind of thing would be good if you could kind of sit and, you know, you're in between waves or something like that that the enemy is sending against you. She's going to be able to get back to her ultimate more quickly. That would be nice, but she is a fighter that is not going to be, you know, with 1 tower. I said I wasn't going to talk about it anymore, but it is not going to make her good for GVG. So I don't think that this is going to be all that useful in many places, but, you know, maybe I'm not thinking of something. Second passive, Bloody Reprisal. Each time the ultimate is triggered, grants an extra 6% defense penetration during the next ultimate, stacking up to 80% defense penetration. So she's going to get 10% defense penetration per stack when she does get this fully skilled up. Means you're going to get to it quicker. Now, unfortunately, the total penetration does not increase, right? It is just the per ultimate penetration that you are going to get. So you're going to get 10% per ultimate cast versus the 6% that you have base. It is still only going to stack up to 80%. It just means you're going to have to cast the ultimate less times in order to get there. So at full skill ups, which I'm going to assume if you're using her in any kind of competitive content or high-end content, you're going to have her fully skilled up. You're going to have to cast the ultimate 8 times in order to get to 80% defense penetration. That is a lot. That is a lot. 600 rage cost ultimate. 8 times 600 is 4,800 rage. It takes a while to get up there, and there's not a lot of fights that are long enough in this game to really max this out. Guild Boss 2 is the only one that you're really going to see a huge benefit from this skill, at least at max stacks. There aren't really any other fights in the game that last that long. Maybe some of the codexes you might get some use out of, and you know, it does start to show up later on in Guild Boss 1, but nobody really considers Guild Boss 1 high-end content at this point. You certainly don't need to be pulling specific heroes in order to conquer it. If you were an early account and you don't have a ton of Nightmare Fighters, then this is great for you. Like, she's great that way, but you know, if you have a developed account, you've got most of the heroes in the game, she's just not, in my opinion, this is not enough to separate because it takes so long to stack this up. If you could get to that 80% a whole hell of a lot quicker, oh, good God. 80% defense penetration in the ultimate is crazy. That's really, really good. But, you know, it just takes too long to get there, in my opinion, to really kind of fully take advantage of that skill set. So there is that. And then let's take a look at the bond skill with Hex, of course. She does share that, doesn't share a faction, but she does share a motif, an aesthetic with Hex. So, and maybe a little bit more, if you know what I mean. So the Mad Devotee. So she's a groupie is what I'm getting from this. Obtain Hero Hex, the Mad Diviner, to unlock the following bonus effect. Reduce Twyla's first deployment cost by 6, which is nice. She does have a 17 cost base. That first deployment cost will be 11 if you do have Hex. Each time Hex draws a card, Twyla permanently increases crit damage by 5% up to 60% crit damage. This is, if you do have Hex as an exclusive artifact, this is going to be even better. You know, like this is gonna, like, he draws cards like crazy with his exclusives. So I would certainly, you know, you want to take advantage of that. You're going to get a buttload of extra crit damage as a result of having Hex. Now, the thing that is interesting here is that in order to get the second part of that bonus, you do have to have Hex on the same team, which is kind of unique. Most of the bond skills, I think maybe all the bond skills in this game, they don't actually require you to have both heroes deployed at the same time. They just need to be both on your account. In this case, you do need to have Hex there because she is going to get a benefit from something he's doing actively in the battle, and if he's not in the battle, he can't actively do that. So that is that. 2 block was 17 block for a little while on the test server. It is now 2 block. That was a typo, clearly. Redeployment time is pretty standard. Let's look at her stats here. 6376. Base attack at A0. She is going to get a bonus at A2 that we'll talk about in a second, but that is very respectable for a physical damage fighter. That's where he needs to be competitive at this point in the game. Pretty standard stats other than that. Relatively high HP. I do want to note, actually, 28k HP, which is nice. It's not going to be enough to really allow you to use her in content where the enemies are hitting very hard, but you know, it is what it is. It is nice to have that extra HP. I think for boss fights, it is nice. Like Guild Boss 2, having that high base HP is nice. It means you don't really have to focus all that much on stacking HP percent substats on your gear in that case. As far as her advanced attributes, attack interval is at 2.6 seconds. It's very standard. She does have base, attack speed at 100, crit damage at 150%. That's all pretty standard. Let's take a look at her awakenings real quick. A1, after triggering the ultimate 4 times, increases every single instance of Deranged Blade's damage to 30%. Again, we need to cast the ultimate multiple times. Half as many as getting the full defense penetration stack, so that is nice. But, you are getting a significant bonus. This is going to increase Deranged Blade's damage by 50%. And that is not nothing, especially since it is kind of her feature skill. That is where her big damage does come from. So, 50% damage increase of that. Very, very solid. Again, though, can be most effective in long fights. You're going to need to accrue 2,400 rage in order to make that happen. So, interesting there. 300 attack. Wish it was 5%. I think they know what they're doing here. On the higher attack units, higher base attack units, they're not giving percentage because they know that once you get past 6,000, that 5% attack that you do some kind of see in the A2 actually exceeds the 300 attack. So you're only getting 300 attack there. Still nice, but with that big of a base attack pool, it's not as impactful as it would be on a marksman or a mage or something like that. A3. Ultimate duration plus 5 seconds. The ultimate duration is 20 seconds when fully skilled up. So you're basically going to get a 25% increase to the ultimate duration at A3. Very strong. Her ultimate is very strong, especially when you consider in longer fights when you are able to stack up that defense penetration. That is awesome. Penetration plus 8%. So you're going to be sitting at max stacks, 88% defense penetration, which is good God. That is crazy during the ultimate. Really, really solid. I feel dirty every time I say it, but I love the penetration. It makes me feel gross when I say it, but it is true. It is a great stat in this game. Awaken number 5. Upon dealing fatal damage for the first time, becomes immune to death for 6 seconds and increases damage by 100%. I did test this. That 100% damage is only for the 6-second duration here. So anybody who was hoping that was permanent, that is not the case from what I have seen. 6 seconds. Unyielding. Yeah, that's nice, I guess. 100% damage for 6 seconds. And for a unit that is designed to be a boss killer, I just don't think that 6 seconds of double damage is really all that compelling. I think the A5 is not all that great. I think, if you can get her to A3, that's really where she really is going to show out. A4 is nice too. That extra 8% is very nice, but I don't know that you really need to push past A3 if you are going to be pulling a bunch for her. That would be my recommendation. Let's go take a look at the Guild Boss 1 testing that I did do. Let's take a look at what I found out. All right, guys. So what I did here, this is my Guild Boss 1 testing we got going on right here. I dropped in a team with Torador, with Arrogance, with Lust, with Kagiri, with Twyla. I've got the gearing on the damage dealing champions right up above my head right here. I've also got all of the runs that I did. Now, unfortunately, I didn't have a base copy of Arrogance, so I had to have him at A5 on the test realm. But I did have a base copy of Lust, Kagiri, and Twyla, so I am ranking them up. Every one of these awakening levels that you do see on the left-hand side of the screen right here, that does indicate that all of Lust, Kagiri, and Twyla were all at that awakening level when I did do the test. I did 3 runs at each awakening level, A0, A1, A3, and A5, and I recorded the results. I took an average. You can see the averages are at the bottom underneath each awakening level. I did highlight the highest damage dealer in each one, which was Arrogance every single time. So, you know, it was what it was. I was expecting Kagiri and Twyla to overtake him, but they did not. So I'm just reporting here. I did have them all in Warlord gear on the left-hand side, Soulbound Archon on the right. They all were in triple attack % gear on the right-hand side. It was not really ideal gear for Guild Boss 1. It was on Nightmare 4, but obviously, you know, you want to be stacking crit damage a little bit more than that typically on this fight. But the point was not to find out how great they would do at Guild Boss 1. I wanted to give them a 5-minute fight to go against. I also recognize that this does not work to Twyla's strength, right? Twyla gets more damage the more time she can cast her ultimate. A 5-minute fight may not be ideal for that. I wanted to kind of test that. I also am going to have, obviously, Guild Boss 2 testing in a second where the fight is significantly longer. So we'll see if the dynamic kind of shifts there at any point. But, every single time, at every awakening level, Arrogance did beat everybody else out. At A0, Lust did come in the strongest. She did have an average of 95 million at that point. Kagiri was at 76 million, and Twyla was at 85 million. At A1, again, Arrogance was the king right there. Granted, he's A5, while the rest are not. But Lust was at 97 million on average. Twyla overtook her, 101,704,000 on average in my A1 testing. So Twyla was the top. And then Kagiri dropped. He did less damage there. I do want to also say, and you know, I'm sure there's going to be some people sounding off in the comments, this was an auto run, and Kagiri, especially with Lust thrown in there, Lust tossing out Rage, throwing off timings and things like that, Kagiri was not always getting his Ember Strike. Sometimes it was the sweeping strike, you know, and I think you're kind of, when you're playing with Kagiri, you're doing this juggling match of you're trying to make sure that you don't waste opportunities for Ember Strikes, but you also don't want to just sit there and not use the ultimate ever either. I don't know that I did it perfectly. I think the results kind of show that there may be some flaws in the way I was playing him. So, you know, this is just a data point, or this is a bunch of data points, but, you know, this is just one test that's being done. I think there's other people that have done a lot of testing too. I would encourage you to take all of this, you know, in totality and kind of make your own decision based on that. But these are the results that I got, and I'm just going to report to you what I did find out. So when we did move up to A3 on everybody, we didn't see a huge difference, which kind of surprised me. Lust did gain a bit of damage. She's up at 104 million from 97 million at A1. So she had A3. She gained on average about 7 million damage. We did see a big jump for Kagiri. He gained 33 million damage on average at this point. And Twyla did get a bump up of another 4 million. Again, this is not an ideal fight for her because she had a limited amount of time when she had max stacks. The A3 for her is plus 5%, or 5%, plus 5 seconds on her ultimate. So that is something as well. And at A5, again, Arrogance still beat everybody else out by a pretty significant margin too. I do have the percentage of A5 Arrogance's damage in the far right column over here. You can review that for the other awakening levels, but at A5, we did have Lust coming in at 92.97% of Arrogance's damage. She averaged 139 million across the 3 runs that I did do. Kagiri averaged 120 million, and then Twyla, whose A4 and A5 are kind of subpar from a damage perspective, did not gain all that much. She gained another 6 million damage on average, putting her at 111 million damage. Now, I gotta say, not super impressed with her. Good hero, don't get me wrong. Good hero. But how many 5-minute fights are there in this game, let alone longer than that? If she can't do more than just compete with these other heroes that we already have access to, I just don't know how desirable that really is. I think you want her for the bond skill for Hex. You want her just to have her because she is a good hero, but chasing awakening levels and things like that, based on my testing, I don't know that that's the way to go. But, you know, what more testing will have to be seen. Let's go over to Guild Boss 2. Let's take a look at my results there. Maybe the longer fight netted her a bit more damage. Guild Boss 2 testing here. So what I have done, again, just like with the Guild Boss 1 testing, I did test Lust, Kagiri, and Twyla, going all the way up from A0 all the way to A5. I only did one run because Guild Boss 2 takes for goddamn ever, and I just don't have the patience to do it. A couple of notes on here. I did stop each run at 80,000 mech parts. That was kind of as far as I was willing to go with this. I was not trying to push this and get crazy high scores with these heroes. On the test server, my gear, I've got good gear, but it's limited in some ways as well. So there was really only so much I can do. I also don't have Awakening, I have Awakenings, but I don't have Pantheon bonuses really on there either, because I haven't spent time going through and running the faction trials on that account. So I don't really get any bonuses from that. So that needs to be taken into account as well. These heroes are not getting extra HP percent, extra attack percent, all those things that you do see in the Pantheon bonus. I'm not getting any of that stuff. So these, despite the stats that are, again, in this table down here underneath all of this, they do have lesser stats than a hero on an account with Pantheon bonuses would have on global servers. So that should be kept in mind. The other thing is that Twyla, theoretically, the longer she goes, the stronger she gets. Now, she is going to get capped, obviously, after 10 ultimate casts, or excuse me, 8 ultimate casts, I believe. She does end up getting capped on her damage reduction. But the longer you can get her in that state where she's getting the max bonus from that, the better her damage is going to be at the end of the day. So that's kind of where I'm at. Third, and finally, the last thing I am going to say about this is, and it's something that I've said in the past when I've done GB2 testing, because this is a closed system, and by that I mean there is a set amount of health that it takes to get to 80,000 mech parts, a set amount of damage that needs to be done. We should not see significant variation in the amounts here. Now, this 778, I think that typically is like that difference here. That's the lowest one. It was at A0. The reason that it was that low was likely because we didn't do as much damage in the intermission phases in between the different phases of the fight. Those are the only times when there is an uncapped damage opportunity. Other than that, you are churning through a set amount of boss health to go from one stage to the next. That's why all of these total numbers on the far right-hand column are largely the same. There's not a lot of variation in there. The variation that you do see means that we did more damage in the in-between times when the boss goes down and becomes vulnerable and he has no health that we are chewing through. Otherwise, there is a set amount of health that we churn through, meaning there is a set amount of damage that is going to be divvied up between the various heroes. That's why you see the A5 Arrogance is doing 35% damage when everybody else is at A0, but when we get to A5, he's only doing 26.88% of the damage. It went down because everybody else is doing more damage relative to Arrogance. With that in mind, let's kind of talk through this here. At A0, obviously, Arrogance was the top for all of this, and I know that, you know, some of these higher end runs that you see, like I know like Fabu and some of the other guys, they're all the way up at the top of the Guild Boss 2 rankings. They do have Kagiri way ahead. Maybe they're doing something different. Maybe longer fights are catering to him more. I don't know exactly what it is. And quite frankly, I'm not interested in doing a 45-minute fight at each of these Awakening levels and trying to figure it out. But I'm just reporting on the results I got. And so maybe I wasn't using Kagiri optimally. That may be it, like I was saying before. But, you know, it is what it is. These are the results I got. This is what I'm going to report to you. So at A0, Arrogance did 273 million damage. He did 35% of the total damage. Lust, on the other hand, 179 million, 23% of the damage. Kagiri, an anemic 138 million damage at 17.79%. And then Twyla, very respectable, second place, even at A0, 186 million, 399,000. Almost 24% of the total damage share at that point. Very, very solid. Good on Twyla. The longer fight should cater to her skill set. You would expect to see her perform well in Guild Boss 2. Now, let's take a look at A1. Arrogance drops down. He's only doing 32.48% of the damage at that point. Lust, very similar. She doesn't really get anything here. We did have Torador in the fight, so we were always getting defense reduction, meaning that extra defense reduction that she is bringing as a result of her A1 is not going to be helping out anybody. So she actually did a little bit less, 3 million less damage this time, and her damage share dropped down to 21.83%. Kagiri did get a pretty decent bump here, going up to 153 million and at 19%, but he was still in last place. And then Twyla retaining her second place lead, and in fact, building on it, almost 27% of the damage at 215 million damage done at A1. Now at A3, we see things kind of leveling off a little bit as well. Arrogance, again, dropping his share. He's down to 27%. We've got Lust at 22%, so she's kind of in the same spot she was at A1. Again, her Awakenings are not great up until A5, where it is phenomenal, and these numbers kind of reflect that as well. Kagiri, big bump at A3, and that is his best Awakening, 24.29%. Twyla gets an extra 5 seconds on her ultimate at A3. Was not enough to keep pace with the others, meaning that she did relatively slightly less damage. She had 26.47% of the damage share at that point. Now, she was still in second place, but she actually lost ground to Lust and Kagiri, and that trend does kind of continue here. So we've got Lust pulling ahead a lot at A5. Lust did 208 million damage, almost as much damage as Arrogance at that point, 5 million less than Arrogance, who did 213 million damage. Again, still the top damage dealer in this comp, based on these stats that are down here. And then at A5, we've got Kagiri at 184 million, 23% of the damage share, and Twyla dropping down to only 23.67%. And I think that is really indicative of the fact that her A4 and A5 are just not as good as the other heroes in here. You do see Kagiri dropping down as well. I don't know what that's about. I think his A5 is pretty solid, so I'm not sure exactly why that happened. You know, there's also an RNG element here with Lust, who she gives extra rage to when that rage manifests. I mean, is Kagiri getting full benefit of that? I don't know. You know, Twyla, though, big drop-off there, and I was kind of surprised about that. She went from a 26.47% share at A3 down to a 23.67% share. I guess I shouldn't say I'm surprised about that. I would think the extra 8% penetration at the A4 would be helpful, but the A5 just doesn't really do anything for her. She takes fatal damage once, and she gets 100% damage increase for 6 seconds. That's it. So, nothing else going from A3 to A5, which is why I think that if you are summoning this weekend, that is where you should kind of stop, in my opinion. Well, there you have it, guys. So, I mean, those are my findings. What I will say is that, you know, she's a good hero. I do think she's a really solid hero. I think if you don't have some of the other heroes I was testing her against, if you don't have Lust or Kagiri, which honestly you probably should have because they were both on exclusive banners recently. They were both up for grabs. But if you don't have them, if you don't have Arrogance, and you need a fourth strong Nightmare fighter. So like, let's say you did pick up Lust and Kagiri, but you don't have Arrogance yet. Twyla is going to be a great fill-in for that. I mean, despite the fact that Arrogance was all over the top of those leaderboards, Twyla was still really, really good. And I do think that in a longer fight, she might end up edging out Arrogance. Kagiri obviously does more damage. I don't know that she's going to be able to touch Kagiri. Really, the question is how full is your account? And I think that is her problem. You know, she doesn't do anything to really separate herself from the others. There's only one fight in the game where her defense penetration really has enough time to ramp up and come to play in a major way. So I just don't know where. I wish her skill set was a little bit more flexible. I feel like if you're going to give her this long ramp up time, at least give her an extra range so she can be used in some other content. But I think she's a pure GB2 hero as of right now. Now that may change in the future, and of course, we do have. I have heard, you know, a next level up on the Guild Boss 2. You know, that, like, I'm not sure when that is going to happen exactly, if that's going to happen, how much damage we're going to need for that. As of right now, I mean, Guild Boss 2 is not really. I think at a certain point, you don't really need damage. You need survivability, right? It's about progressing through the phases. There's no real. You don't have to move through them quickly. So doing more damage is not necessarily what you need. You just need to do enough damage. I'd say really mainly in phase 2, in the Aegis phase. That's really where you need the extra damage. So I don't know. I'm just not sure that she's really somebody that we need on our accounts. But, you know. Sorry to me. I know there's a lot of hype. You see the defense penetration, but these are the results I got. I don't mean to sound like I'm saying she's a bad hero. I just don't think she really separates herself from the other heroes I was testing her against enough to really make me feel like you need to go out and get multiple copies of her and all that kind of stuff. Because I think if you have some of the other heroes, you've got what she does already, really. I mean, what does she bring to the table? Defense penetration, but there's no fights though. She's really going to be able to really stack that up in a way that would be significant aside from Guild Boss 2. You've got Lust is bringing well, I don't think she really brings anything that Lust brings. Lust brings more, better range, brings the rage regen for nightmare units component to it as well. Bleed, she does bring bleed, but Kagiri does that as well. So, yeah, the bond skill for Hex, which isn't even a damage one. So, I don't know. Maybe if I had tested her with Hex in the comp, maybe that would have been the separator. She would have had an extra 60% crit damage, which is not insignificant by any means. So, maybe if I had Hex in there, that would have swung things in her favor. But I really just wanted to compare her to the Nightmare units. That's why I didn't do that. I'm sure some of you will be shouting about that in the comments, and you're more than welcome to. I'm just saying unequivocally right now, she would have done more damage with Hex. You're right. Preempt that a little bit. But thank you all so much for watching. I do appreciate it. Please do like and subscribe if you did enjoy my content. I will catch you all next time.